Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of History Above 41. We have something to celebrate today. We had set a goal of having 20 subscribers by the end of September. We didn't quite hit that on September 30th. We actually hit that goal a few days later on October 2nd or 3rd, but we still made it to anyway. And so, in celebration, we are going to have a gun video today. Today, we will be looking at import marks on milcert firearms. So these import marks, this is going to be in relation to the United States. I don't know what other countries do, but I'm in the United States, so that's what we're going to focus on. And so U.S. law requires that firearms imported from foreign countries have import marks on them. And we'll kind of go over the differences and how it impacts firearms and how it impacts your collection as to how desirable those firearms are to collectors. So, let's get started. The first thing we're going to look at here is an M1 Garand or M1 rifle. Most of you are already familiar with this gun. It is a U.S. manufactured gun. It is semi-automatic and was standard issue to American troops from 1936 until the late 1950s. So we're talking World War II and Korea. Then after World War II and during the Cold War, it was sent out to all of our allies during the Cold War as mutual aid in our fight against the communist forces. This particular firearm was manufactured by Springfield Armory in December of 1941, and it has been imported from South Korea. How it got there, don't really know, but if I were to speculate, I would say it was one of two issues, or one of two ways, I should say. The first way was probably during the Korean War, was taken over either by U.S. troops and carried in the war, or it was shipped over and issued to South Korean forces. Either way, we're going to zoom in here, and just behind the front sight, and just above the gas tube, you can see where it says right along here, Blue Sky / Arlington, Massachusetts. So Blue Sky was the name of the company that was the importer, and Arlington, Massachusetts is where they were located. This is an older import mark, and this was required for all firearms to be imported into the United States. And you can see it's very simple, not a whole lot of information there. So we're going to zoom back out. And we are going to replace this rifle with another firearm that is of United States manufacturer, but was brought in from another country. I just have to be able to reach it. All right, here we go. The famous British Lee Enfield, the number 4 Mark II Star, as manufactured for World War II. So this particular rifle was made for the British by a U.S. firm called Savage. And we're going to zoom in real quick. The Lee Enfield was a British firearm all around. The design came from Britain. Most of them were manufactured in Britain, but because of the wartime economy and the shortages in weapons and materials that Britain experienced, there is this little thing called the Lend-Lease Act, and this particular firearm was manufactured in the United States by Savage Arms, and it says U.S. property across here for Lend-Lease, and it was sent to Britain. Now, we will look here. So on this firearm, if we go here down a little ways, you see with these Lee Enfields, you don't have the gap between the handguard and the forearm and the front sight that you would normally see on something like an M1. So they had to place it someplace else. And so we're going to flip it over, and I'll just pick it up here to make it a little more visible. Here we go. Whoops, bumped the camera. All right. So you can see we have, I actually have it upside down. See if I can get this to focus a little bit better. We have the importer, which is CAI, Georgia, Vermont, and it has the caliber. So here's the manufacturer or the importer name. This is where they're located. We have the caliber 303, and it was imported into the United States. So we see that on there, and you can see this is a different mark than what we had on the M1. So this is probably a newer import mark than what was on the M1. So probably looking at sometime 2000 period, perhaps, maybe a little sooner, a little later, somewhere in there. But that's how the import marks have changed. And we'll look at another firearm here that was imported into the United States. This is an model 1895 Mosin Nagant. It's a Russian pistol from World War II. And if we look here on the receiver, again, I'll bring it up here so it's easier to see. Again, we see 1895 Russia. So this one here has the location that it was imported from. 7.62 by 30R, which is the caliber that this firearm shoots. And then we see CAI, Georgia, Vermont. So again, CAI imported this, and they are located in Georgia, Vermont. So these pistols were imported in large quantities in the early 2000s, as were the 9130 Mosin Nagant rifles. And they were fairly cheap. Due to current conflicts between Russia and the United States over Ukraine and other incidents, there's been a ban on trade with Russia with the United States, and as a result, the supplies have dried up, and those pistols have gone up in price. So, and then here is a firearm, obviously a foreign manufacturer. It is a Walther P38. It is wartime manufacture, but if we look at this, you see some markings here on the slide, some on the frame. Flip it over, some more markings on the slide and the frame. We open it up here. Sometimes you'll see import marks printed here along the magwell, but you're not seeing that. And so this firearm, in all likelihood, was brought back as a GI bringback. So kind of the school of thought with import marks and collector desirability and hence value of a firearm is, at least what I've seen in the collecting community, is if it's something that was either produced in the United States or could have been brought back by a U.S. GI, a U.S. infantryman, sailor, marine, Coast Guard, somebody that's in the U.S. military in World War II and subsequent wars, I guess, and it has an import mark, that is considered a detriment to its value and its desirability. However, if we have something like the Lee Enfield we just saw, or like the 1895 Nagant revolver we just looked at, where they were, in the case of the Nagant, it was manufactured in a foreign country. It was not a country that the United States was in conflict with, like with Italy, like with Germany, like Japan. Therefore, it is unlikely that an American GI or an American serviceman could have brought it home from the war, and it has an import mark on it. It doesn't really affect the value. Or, like with our Lee Enfield, it was produced in the United States, but it was sent overseas, intentionally sent overseas, intended to be sent overseas for use by a foreign government in their military and brought back. Again, I really don't think that affects its value. With the M1, with an M1 rifle or an M1 carbine or a 1911 or something of that nature, yes, it would definitely impact its value because that's a U.S. weapon. and though it was sent overseas in foreign aid, it's possible to get those without import marks. The Lee Enfields with marked U.S. property, it's not really possible to get those without import marks, unless you stole one from a British military unit and brought it home. So that's not a detriment to its value as it would be on a Garand or a Springfield or a trench gun or something of that nature. So that's kind of my take on U.S. import marks. I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts of your own. If you do, be sure to put them in the comments section below the video. And if you like what we're doing, or what I'm doing, I guess I should say, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe this video. Thanks for watching.